Hello YouTube, my name's Sean Connors and welcome back to the Outsiders channel. Now, I saw today that the D&D Puzzle of the Week had produced a video about what your best or most memorable RPG experience was, and asked for the community at large to produce a video about theirs. And I thought I'd share mine with you. It's a little bit more than just talking about one experience. I think I need to set the scene for it because it's a multitude. This particular campaign had so many memorable bits to it. It sticks in my mind as one of the very best that I've ever run. I mean, I think all of them have been quite memorable in their own way, but this one particularly, for a lot of reasons, and particularly the ending. But I'll start off setting the scene about it. The first thing was, it was a Second World War role-playing game, a system that I developed. And the idea behind the system was fairly simple, that I had this vision that when you talk about show me your papers, I saw what the papers were like laid out, the British papers, and I thought, wouldn't it be brilliant, because it's quite a concertina piece of A4 paper, that would make a fantastic character sheet. So I came up with the idea, people had their picture on the front, details about them, the stats and everything, and all about the bios and stuff in it, and it was a brilliant character sheet, because they kept them with them. So character sheet wasn't something that was on the table, it was actually kept with them, and then they had to take the sheet out. You had to really know your character. It was just a bit of fun. So that was good. Rolling up characters was fun. But what made it really memorable for that part was the fact we had a blend of new characters, new players, and they were very inexperienced, and old hands. So we had a real mixture of the two, and it was gelling them all together in a brand new setting with my own system, and making it work. But the group, the one thing that immediately struck me was that everybody jumped into the feel of the game. We had different nationalities. We had some Scots, we had Irish, we had some English, we had French. It was just great. So everybody, all this mixture of different personalities, and people really portrayed their characters, which was strong throughout the campaign. The campaign was originally set to run for about a year, and it ran for 2 years because it was so popular, and everybody religiously turned up. They had so much fun with the game that they turned up, and obviously I sort of set it up that how they came together was quite unusual. It started off, they came together on, they were thrown together because of a plane that was going down. They were the people on board the plane, and they were the survivors, and it was behind enemy lines and so on. They were specialists in the fields and stuff. They were supposed to be coming back to the UK just before war broke out, and so it was quite a good little story bringing them all together. And cut long story short, anyway, it gelled them. They became a team, and they began to do stories behind enemy lines. And I set the whole campaign up. There was a lot of backstories and stuff going on in it, and a lot of character stories. But one of the major themes of the backstories was the fact that there was an overrunning thing that somebody high up in the intelligence part that they'd become associated with, excuse me for a moment, had become associated with, there was some sort of mole there. There's something wrong, because certain information was getting out, and this was becoming stronger and stronger and stronger as the campaign came on, and they were getting closer to narrowing it down, but hadn't quite done it. And we entered the final story, and we knew it was the final night. And so I won't set too much of a scene on that. I just want to cover the highlights, because what really made the campaign that bit more memorable. It's certainly something people could certainly use, I think. And it's certainly a theme, I think, and a genre that's underused at the moment. I think it's fantastic. But anyway, there's the sort of final story was something along the lines of, I can't remember, I think it was set in Norway, and there was a Nazi equivalent to a power station that was operating on a dammed lake, and they were producing heavy water. They were a step away from creating nuclear weapons. It's quite factual, actually, in many ways. Most of the stories were. It was another brilliant thing about the game. You could draw maps and stuff. And so they had to get into that base, discover how close the Germans were, to steal the technology, and actually destroy what was left, so that, effectively this would halt that side of it, and probably bring a very quick close to the war, because it was within the last few weeks of it. So it was a nice story. It was really nice. It's good to go out on that sort of high. So I set the scene up where we started the game, that particular session, where I had 6 chairs lined up, 3 down, like imagine a rows of a small plane, and that was the whole point to this. And they are sitting at their little chairs, and I'm at the front, and then I come forward like as the co-pilot, so look, the pilot's dead because they've been attacked. We lost but one engine, the other one's crippled, we're going to go down. We got parachutes. This is an emergency jump. I'm going to have to explain to you how to operate these parachutes. Now, they had done jumps before, but I'd already previously gone into a lot of backstory about particular parachutes that they had, and I just wanted to bring this vivid piece alive. So I had them standing on the chair, I had them jumping off the chair, I had them literally going 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, check canopy, and I had them actually making it seem as if they were guiding the parachutes down. And then because they had this tentative scene about somebody was sabotaging stuff on there, one of the parachutes had been tampered with, and I will come back to explain why that was the case in a moment. It'll become more obvious. And it was the leader of the group's parachute has been tampered with, and when he made the jump, his main parachute didn't open. And so the look of fear in his face was just brilliant. That you go 1,000, 2,000, check it hasn't opened. And it's like, damn, what do I do? And it's like, because they were quite unique, very experimental parachutes, they had a backup chute, which was unique to the time period. I just threw a few things in that did happen, but they were fairly unique. And so he goes to operate the emergency chute, and it does operate, but it operates very close to the ground. So he's injured, but he's alive, and he can carry on. It was just an excellent little story. And at the time, they didn't know it had been sabotaged, just assumed it had failed, but it became obvious why later. So it was quite good. And the characters eventually got into the power station, but they, just as they were about to pull off a fantastic coup, they'd done a great job. I had this nugget of an idea, and this is the thing that was the moment that created that memory that all the players keep talking about to this day. And we had a guy in the group, a guy called Mark, who was relatively new, very new to role playing. I mean, he'd been with the campaign since the beginning, but 2 years of play is not a huge amount of time. He was still very raw. He'd loved the character, cherished this character, and developed this character. And I went to Mark. Out of all the players around the table, I chose Mark because I felt this could be Mark's moment. I just felt that this was the right moment to approach him. He would be the player to approach, not one of the experienced players. It just struck me that it was right to go to him. And I said to Mark, listen, Mark, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I need your buy-in. What I need you to do is you're the mole. You're the person that's been the double agent within the organisation all this time period. And now's the time to turn the tables. And so Mark, without hesitation, said, that's fantastic, Sean, I'm going to do it. And he went back in that room. And as the characters were about to pull the coup, I made a few things happen. And Mark was able to put on this phenomenal German accent and to basically capture them all and begin interrogating them. And we had this fantastic scene where they were literally, stacked up against the same chairs they jumped off just a few hours before. And he's really getting into it, mein Kommandant, and really, really throwing himself into it. And fantastic fun. And eventually, of course, I did warn Mark, and Mark knew full well that chances were the players would probably get out of it. Mark knew that. And in a way, he wanted them to get out of it, his character, which was a brilliant thing. And although they got away from the complex, Mark was quite hot on their heels. He had a staff car, a few men on board the car, and machine guns and stuff. And there's a great scene where the guys have gone out of this complex. They've blown it up, blown up the heavy water, etc. Done a good job there, but they've got to get away themselves. They know it's the end of the campaign. They don't know what's going to happen. They've got a staff car hot on their heels, and they've had to go over and away down the side of this large mountain. And most of the characters have gone a particular route off-road, but one of them, a guy called Jack O'Neill, a guy played by Adrian's character, who was a hilarious character, decided to try and cover the retreat and stay on the road so that the others could get away. And as he saw the staff car coming, he steps over this small, low-built wall, one of those sort of dry stone walls, and sprays the staff car with machine gun fire, killing everybody instantly on board except Mark's character, which is critically wounded and lying on the ground, bleeding to death. And without having to say anything, I just sort of gave Mark a little look, and Mark decided instantly at that moment, he knew what I meant. Without saying anything, he just knew that I was going to keep him alive long enough to say something to Adrian's character, Jack O'Neill. And there was a great line as well that Jack O'Neill, has got to share it with you because it's classic. Jack O'Neill said, as he sprayed the car, no one squeals on Jack O'Neill. And that will always stay with me. But anyway, so Mark's character's on the ground. He's bleeding to death. And he's barely alive. And he just sort of looks up and he begins to try and talk. And he gives the name, Jack, please talk to me one last time, Jack. I've got something I must tell you, Jack. So Jack comes close and he says, and then he pulls this fantastic surprise on Jack and he just says, I did it for you. At which point he expires. And there's this great ending to the story where I leave them in doubt, and so does Mark, as to whether he was a double agent, who was working inside the organisation, or whether he was the reason why some of the stories they were able to get away, or what they did was successful. It left a doubt that was so powerful. I did it for you. And the campaign ended that night when they'd escaped. And even though they'd succeeded, and it was fantastic fun, they felt so betrayed by their friend, yet admired him. And Mark got a standing ovation from the players for playing that character. And that is another thing that will always stand with me. And all because of a spark of an idea and the fact that someone was willing to come with you on the journey. So I share that experience with you. I wish you well. I've been Outsiders. This has been Sean Connors, reminiscing about a fantastic RPG experience that I've had. Take care of yourselves and happy gaming. And thank you for the question to the D&D Puzzle of the Week. I shall put a link on at the bottom of this video to his channel if you haven't already seen it. Thank you. Bye-bye.